Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Winnipeg Business Podcast, where I bring in Winnipeg's finest businesses to share who they are, what they do, what makes them unique, and what you should look for when dealing with somebody within their industry. So without further ado, let's go. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Truly Fresh Asks, where I bring in industry professionals to share 5 things that property managers should know regarding their industry. I'm your host, James, and with me today is Jonathan Pederson, owner of Castle Pest Control, and he will be our expert on the pest control industry for today. So without further ado, Mr. Jonathan.
All right, I have no idea what to follow with. Okay, so we're here today to discuss pest control and kind of the things that property managers can look to with the companies that they're either employing or changes they're looking to make because they're not seeing the results that they desire. So the big thing in Winnipeg currently, and I think most people know this, is bed bugs. There's a lot of kind of hearsay about how the proper way to do bed bug treatments and what that method is. So there's companies that do chemical applications only. They might be doing perimeter sprays. Well, the question with that is, what are they doing for the furniture that's in the building? So when they're coming in and essentially just spraying the perimeter, they're not spraying the areas and targeting the spots where the bed bugs are on the furnishings. So while we offer chemical applications, they are a bit different than most companies, where basically we treat the actual furnishings using a chemical that is rated to be applied to all the seams and edging, backs, bottoms, inside cavities of furnishings, all the areas where they're basically going to congregate. So the second treatment option that you have is doing heat treatments. So one of them is doing ambient heat treatments for the space. What that does is it elevates the temperature of the actual atmosphere in the home or in the condo unit, things like that. Now, that has a lot of benefits, one of them being that a lot of preparation can be skipped in the sense that we're not so much worried about quarantining all the fabrics and furnishings in the place because the heat's going to get to, essentially the idea is that it's going to penetrate through everything in the space. The problem with that is that in this time of year in Winnipeg, it'll push that activity behind the walls where there's insulation, cool temperatures, and there's really no guarantee that those bugs are going to be destroyed.
They go into the walls.
Yeah, so they go into the walls and essentially they'll survive. Yeah. So and aside from that, when you have multi-dwelling complexes like apartment units, what'll happen is that you treat the one unit of concern with heat in that manner, and it pushes activity outward. And so what can happen is you can get secondary infestations in these surrounding units. So that's one of the biggest consequences of doing that style. Now, what we do is we use commercial hand steamers, and we actually target the furnishings directly. So basically, we're going exactly where the bugs are, and we're destroying them in the cracks and crevices of all the furnishings, and basically steaming everything that's in the house, finalizing that with a chemical application. Now, people think the chemical does most of the work. It is true when they're alive and they're adults. It does go a long way to basically eradicating everything that's in the unit. But when it comes to the eggs actually only have like maybe a 30-40% mortality rate when exposed to chemicals. So it's actually very low. So that's where heat treatment kind of exceeds the standards because heat is the only thing that's really going to destroy all the bugs. So when we're looking at doing that, we're always doing a 2-week follow-up, make sure that anything that's hatched in the meantime, they might have been hidden behind baseboards, things like that, is getting retreated. And pretty much if you're selecting a contractor and they say, oh, we'll come and do a one-off for bed bugs, you kind of want to step back and say that's probably not the best idea because you have to do follow-up. They do require monitoring after the fact. Okay,
so when pest control experts come in and say that it's a one-time, they'll get those bed bugs and then they're gone, we should be weary of those type of things?
I would say it's extremely rare that it's actually effective. I mean, it certainly can happen, right? I mean, it can be effective if you have a small issue, right? Maybe there's just one bug that fell off you and there may not even be anything there. So as they present it to you, they're saying, well, one application is enough, you've only found one bug. Essentially, that concern then is just a preventative application to make sure nothing else is thriving in those areas. So that's where those chemical treatments can be effective. But generally speaking, when you have, flipped over a bed and you find 10, 15, 20 bugs, they're probably spreading around to other areas of your home or office or condo, and you really need to make sure that we're getting to every piece of furniture in the place because if one bug survives, you're right back to the beginning. The other thing is too is making sure you have a company that has a 90-day, like we have a 90-day service guarantee on our everything we do. Yes. So basically we come in, we get paid once to do the job, and so if we're coming back beyond the second visit, well, we're coming back for free. So it keeps us more accountable for the services we're doing, and you want to select a contractor that has that type of formula because if it's every time I got to come back and you're going to pay me each time I come back, where's the motivation for a lot of guys who may be less honest to get it done and wrapped up as quickly as possible?
So one of the other things I've seen a lot in commercial spaces, the offices that we clean in this city, is mice. So Can you like shine some light on mice?
Sure. So when we're looking at mice, whether it's commercial or residential properties, our number one focus is always on prevention. So what we do is called integrated pest management. Integrated pest management essentially is the following principles based on excluding the activity from coming in the first place and prevention being our number one priority, right? So when we're in a business or whether we're in a residential home, we're always looking to document and find all the entry points so that the homeowner can get the corrections done or the business can get the corrections done. We will do small repairs if we believe we can do them professionally and they're going to be aesthetically looking professional. We'll do them. Anything else that might be above that, we tend to recommend to affiliates. But when it comes to mice, generally speaking, we're coming in and we're using all commercial restricted baits that require a provincial pesticide applicator's license in order to apply them, which there are some companies in the city that I am aware of that do not do that type of formula. They don't have that pesticide applicator's license. So as a result, you can get some companies that will use things like baking soda or mix it in with some sort of food product like cookies or cake or whatever it is. And the idea is that the baking soda will kill them. Well, I mean, it's just not, the reality is that just doesn't go the full mile, right? Mm-hmm. You need to be using the hard-hitting products. So everything we use is focused in a safe fashion, tamper-resistant stations. We put them in discrete areas where pets and children can't get to them. And then combining that with our inspections, we try to eliminate the issue so that people don't have an issue. We hear it all the time. Yeah. We have an issue every year. We want to try to eliminate that. Once again, with the warranties, it helps keep us accountable. And with
your prevention plan, that's actually a really big thing.
Prevention is the biggest part of pest control, right? Especially when it comes to commercial businesses. I mean, whenever we get calls for things, we're battling it. Anybody can get an issue under control for the most part. Yeah. So making sure it stays away and making sure you have technicians that are coming in and doing their inspections, especially in the restaurant industry, coming in saying, we have door sweeps here that are causing mice issues. And, repeatedly we're having issues month over month. Well, we're the type of staff that we look at and we go, okay, who do we have to escalate this to make sure these issues are brought to light, to make sure they get corrected? Because businesses don't want to be paying for us to come back over and over again, right? So, and that's basically the gist of our mice control.
So you're saying like if somebody moves into a new office space, it would be a great idea for them to contact you prior to running into any pests?
For sure, getting preventative inspection just to basically say we're into this new place. So I have for example, I have a restaurant chain that we dealt with and they did some renovations and this place looks beautiful now, but some of the things that were there before the renovation, door threshold plates where the concrete's exposed, we have gaps, 1-2 inch gaps. Those are the types of things that when we say to the property owner and even the business owner, you guys spend all this money renovating the place, let's not damage the reputation of the place by getting a bunch of mice. Let's nail this right away and get it so that this isn't even a concern. So there's other things too that we handle everything basically, right? You look at cockroaches in those situations. There's lots of companies that do sprays for cockroaches in apartment atmospheres, and you don't want to spray for cockroaches because it drives the activity into the structure. It drives them into the pipe chases, and also it spreads the issue, right? So not that it's wrong to spray in certain instances, like to protect adjacent suites that don't have issues, but there's a lot of companies that go, we call it splash and dash. They come in, they do a spray, and off they go, and that's what they kind of figure is satisfactory for the service. But we try to be a higher standard and focus on a lot of the manuals and documentation by entomology departments that show us the best measures of control and how to do it as effectively and quickly as possible.
Nice that you actually put the knowledge behind it to make sure that it's
And we handle everything from shopping centers to personal care homes to restaurant chains. We do everything, and property management is a big part of that. But we do a lot of food plants as well, where things like electronic managed sites that basically track every device in the facility and create trend reports so that we can see where the pressure points are in the buildings, things like that.
I didn't know
we have that, And so it's a big part because these food plants have compliance audits, and they want to see what is being done, the paper trails, the audit trails of, okay, we had a structural concern. When was it resolved? Sanitary concern that led to this, stored product pest being developed. What was everything is tracked in food plants, right? We're in the era of everything needs to be documented and everything needs to be recorded. And for us, with doing the electronic management system, we have a document server. So if you have an auditor come in and they want to review your history of all the reports, they want to see what pests you've had. It's all available on our client portals, easily accessible. No more binders where, stuff can occasionally be pulled, reviewed, and then doesn't get placed back, causing auditors to,
or getting lost in there.
And these facilities can get dock points for that, and that does make a big difference when they're looking at getting their certifications for their industries, right? So, that's probably the biggest thing that we push is that system because it's so beneficial in the end to pretty much everybody.
So you just mentioned the portal. I've actually never heard of that regarding the pest control. Can you elaborate that?
So essentially, whenever we issue a report or an invoice, you get all of our, well, first of all of our stuff is paperless, right? So every piece of documentation, I mean, we're trying to be as eco-conscious as we can, but everything gets emailed to the client. There's a link that takes them directly to the portal. There's no worrying about login information, tracking passwords. I mean, everybody has enough of that stuff as it is. Yeah. They basically just click the link, they go into the portal, and, you have your dashboard that, let's say you're a business. You got your dashboard, it says, all your outstanding invoices, what the cumulative total is. Then you have a second tab, it's the history of all the work being performed. So if you have a health inspector come in, for example, and you run a restaurant and they say, well, we found a cockroach, and as a business owner, you're saying, well, we've hired a company to do professional work. We've hired them, they've identified these concerns. We've been working with the company to get these things cleared out so that they're no longer a concern. Well, the health inspector, of course, is going to say, well, let me see those reports. I want to see the paper trail, right? So it's beautiful because you can log in as a business owner and just go, here's our reports, here's all the documentation. And then, there are situations where they say, well, do you have a licensed pest control operator? Is this man putting down pesticides? Does he hold a provincial license? Well, all of our credentials, safety data sheets, our business registration, everything from pesticide logs to the product labels, it's all on that portal.
Wow, that's really good, the transparency.
We're trying to be as innovative as possible, make it as easy for the client so that they have everything that they need basically from the fingertips.
And they're not just shuffling through papers when the health inspector comes.
And I mean, there's situations where Warren's still having binders on site, of course. Like we can't have food plants, maybe the internet's down and then they don't have access. Well, we still have to have some hard copies into the sites. But we try to make it so if you have a thought in your head and you go, what, Jonathan said to me, check this, we'll be using this product, it's available online. You can just click that link and then you have all the information, because there's situations where we go in with, say, cockroaches, for example, and we say, in a food plant, it might be a peanut-free facility or a wheat-free facility, dairy-free. Well, they want to know what allergens are in those products, and those are all that information is available on the portal by clicking the links for the products. So
I never thought of that. That's cool.
So one other area of focus I think that we should focus on is with the property management companies. A lot of times, some of these bigger companies, their main focus is getting these property managers on contracts. So while we do have contracts, I mean, when we're doing a lot of month-to-month work, we want to make sure that we're keeping both parties essentially, locked in and focused on, our cooperative efforts to make sure we're getting everything in control and getting it, focused on prevention. When it comes to property management, I think it's a bit different because, you get a lot of companies that will come in and say, hey, we'll come in at this cost, this will be the cost per treatment, this is what it'll be. But they say, well, we want to lock you in for a year. Well, now, as a property management company, I mean, you really don't know what you're going to get, and it's a big risk to take. So a lot of companies are very hesitant to sign on the dotted line, essentially, because, when you get a new contractor in for something as sensitive as bed bugs or cockroaches, in a matter of a few months, it could spread and destroy a reputation of a company, right? Because if the contractor is not doing the work properly, well, it's concerned. So we do not focus on contracts when it comes to property management. I mean, certainly if they want a rodent program month over month, we're checking traps, things like that. Sure, that's a basic thing we'll throw on contract. But when it comes to doing treatments for, the tenant units and things like that, we try to stray away from that because we want to make sure we have the most amicable relations with our clients, so that if they want to, if they feel our services are not up to the expectation and they're not willing to renegotiate with us, like a different alternate strategy for what would work with their kind of setup, then we don't want to lock people in. And I mean, we've had a few people over the past few years that have brought concerns to us because they had previous companies. The guys retired. They liked the way they were doing things. We may not necessarily agree that is the best approach to do it, but costs and budgets always come in. So we find a working solution with them rather than saying, no, we're just going to walk away because this is the only route we have. There's many routes to doing pest control, but it's important to work with the client to find there's what they have found to be the most effective for their buildings, because every structure is different, right? What works in one building may not work for another one. Sorry, my phone just went off there a little bit.
That's okay.
But I think that's probably my primary concerns, what we've just been discussing there.
So then you do yours like per project with a warranty on top of each project.
Yeah, I mean, every situation is different. I mean, with multi-dwelling housing, like apartments, things like that, we tend to do it as a rate per visit, because when you have one infested suite, and let's say there's a lot, and it happens all the time. We don't want to go into the neighbor's suite. We don't want them being aware that there's an issue next door.
Oh, of course.
Well, we always say to them, well, we need to be inspecting those surrounding units, because how do we know that the issue for the one tenant that's bringing it up isn't coming from an adjacent property? So I mean, while some companies are pretty good at saying, what, we've dealt with this enough, we're willing to get you in. Others, necessarily are not so accommodating. So generally speaking,
and then it's just going to return.
Of course. So generally speaking, detached homes and residential atmospheres, warranties are pretty much on everything. everything. When it comes to the multi-dwelling buildings, it really depends. If they're giving us access to all the units to inspect or potentially do preventative sprays, things like that, sure, we can offer warranties. But if we don't have access to half the building, it's tough for us to kind of give a warranty on a situation that we don't know what's going on in the other half of the building. So, but once again, we're willing to do it, provided we can get the access to do the inspections and get the full picture, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming in. And do you have any final words for the audience prior to?
Yeah, I think just the general consensus that I'd like to get across here is that the business that we've kind of developed here is really focused on honest work and doing ethical decisions when it comes to doing pest control. There's a lot of companies that will just focus on, let's throw poison down as our first measure, right? And when I was talking about integrated pest management earlier, our focus is always on the least impactful procedures as possible. And certainly, if we have to move up to those higher tier knockdown procedures, we do. But we're always looking to basically keep things affordable, come up with accountable warranties for our clients, and do ethical work and build business relationships for the long term. We're not here to make a quick buck and then walk away. I mean, I've been in the industry 7 years now almost, and even with my previous company before I started my own, I really had a very low rate of people that would drop off or cancel. I mean, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I go the extra mile as much as possible. People are calling me at 10 o'clock at night, say, we need you to get down here because of this. I mean, it's a different beast when you run your own company, and the commitment is there. I mean, that's a bit of the difference when you go to these bigger companies. Well, they're sending a technician out. When you're hiring an local operator, I mean, this is my life, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I want to make sure that my reputation stays strong amongst everybody we do relationship.
So you're saying people can actually contact you like 24 hours in
Absolutely,
a day?
yeah. We do have 24. So on our website at www.castlepestcontrol.ca, our contact us page does have a form submission. So pretty much if I'm awake and I get that form submission, you may not get a phone call overnight, but I'll certainly send an email so that people have the information before they get up the next day.
Nice.
We can also be reached by phone. The phone number is 431-337-6670 for Castle Pest Control.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. That's all for today. So till next time, go with the pro. Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Winnipeg Business Podcast. If you know anyone you think would make a perfect guest for the show, please send them to thewinnipegbusnesspodcast.com. Have them fill out the form, and someone from our team will get back to them ASAP. Till next time.